All right, let's start off with Elon Musk waging war against what he calls activist judges. This tweet he came out with today where he says it must be done. And this is in response to another tweet by SMX who said it's time to impeach activist judges. So Elon is responding to that, saying it must be done. So calling to impeach judges. And then there's a quote that SMX quoted Elon saying, "We must impeach judges who are grossly undermining the will of the people and destroying America. It's the only way." This to me is going too far. I'm going to tell you, this is going too far. So what is Elon Musk and Donald Trump upset about? They're upset because many of the courts have not gone along with many of their, mostly the Doge cutting orders. The latest one being the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court actually said, now you guys have to pay out the money that was set aside by USAID to the various different contractors. You have to pay it. They didn't want to pay it. Of course, they're trying to slash the budget. They're claiming they're slashing the budget, but really that is done through Congress. And this is where I get this whole thing. So many people right now just want to carte blanche anything that Trump does, anything Elon does. They absolutely love it, champion it, and they don't even second guess it. There's, of course, the opposite, right? There's the crowd that just blindly hates everything they do, but it's not good to blindly like everything they do either without using some critical thinking skills. And the reality is that Congress manages the budget. That is Congress's job. And this is where the fight comes down with the current battle we're facing with the continuing resolution, the budget. Congress should have passed a new budget October 1st. They didn't. They punted. They kicked the can down the road. Then in December, when they were supposed to come up with a new budget, they once again didn't. They kicked the can down the road to March. And now here we are tomorrow. The government shuts down if they can't pass a budget or a continuing resolution. They have no budget. They have no budget on the table. So it's a continuing resolution that they have to pass. And if they don't, the government shuts down. What do they want to do? Tomorrow, the Trump team, they're wanting a continuing resolution that will kick the can down the road until they're supposed to pass an actual budget October 1st. That's an entire year without a budget. And this is the president that ran on slashing the budget. Elon Musk has been supposedly slashing the budget, but really Congress then has to step in and say, okay, great, you found all this waste, fraud, and abuse. So now we're going to rewrite a new budget that we're going to pass that eliminates all of this waste, fraud, and abuse that you found. So remember, Elon's role is supposed to be advisory. Doge was supposed to go around looking at all the waste, fraud, and abuse and advising the president on what he found. Then the president would go to Congress, and luckily Trump has a Republican Congress, goes to Congress and says, look, this is all the crap that is being spent. We do not need this in the budget. Let's cut the budget. And then Congress would get together. They'd rewrite a new budget that would hopefully be lower, that doesn't add trillions of dollars to the national debt every year. And they'd say, yay, we all win. This was great. Doge did its job. But that's not what's happening. But that's what should be happening. That is actually what many of us thought would happen, that Elon Musk was taking on this advisory role and he would just advise and say, look at all this crap we found. So let's cut it, Congress. And Trump would use his bully pulpit to pressure them into it. But that's not what's happening. Instead, the executive branch is acting like CEOs. And what do you expect? You've got two CEOs trying to run the country like CEOs would run the country. I don't blame them for attempting, considering their background. But unfortunately for them, and fortunately for us, we the people, the United States government is not and cannot be run like a CEO. Democracy is not a business. We do not want to live under authoritarian style decision making. And that what eliminates unprofitable citizens, which is kind of what the government is attempting to do. But you can't run the government like you would a CEO runs a company. But these two CEOs don't seem to understand that fully, or maybe they do, but they're just trying to press the limits. So a lot of the measures that have gone in front of a lot of the, I would say, executive orders that Trump has signed have ended up in court, and the courts have pretty much time and time again not sided with the Trump administration. And I think that's not really surprising. Those of us looking at these executive orders he's signing, I mean, they are overstepping his bounds. Maybe I agree with them and I like them and I wish they would happen, but he is overstepping his bounds. And the more appropriate way to handle it is to go to Congress and to pressure them. I mean, Congress is the most useless branch of government. They do not do their job. They instead, they force the judges to do the job. and the executive branch to do the job, and Congress just wants to sit there and campaign constantly and do the rounds on mainstream news and make millions of dollars on their $175,000 salary. I mean, it's absurd what's going on in Congress. And what really needs to happen is a shakeup and a cleaning up of that swampy branch of government. And the way to do that is to use the bully pulpit, turn the American people against Congress, shed a light on the fact that they're ineffective and they're wasteful, that they are responsible for a lot, if not all, of the waste, fraud, and abuse. And what Trump would do is he would go public, like he does, he's so good at, and pressure Congress by exposing them to the American people and saying, you guys keep passing a stupid budget that has all of these dumb programs. We don't want them. And then Congress would be pressured to eliminate those from the budget. But people are confused, it seems like, especially those who are supporting Trump. They're believing that, and the liberals did the same thing. You know, they did the same when they were trying to abuse the powers as well. But many people are believing that Congress is just the lackeys of Donald Trump, that Trump is the CEO and Congress is the lackeys that just do as he says, and that's their job. And judges need to then also do what Trump says. And that, you know, we have three separate equal branches of government for checks and balances for a reason. We need those checks and balances to remain a democracy. Some of the other things that Elon Musk has said recently, as he's been going after the judges, not just calling for the impeachment of them recently, but he also says democracy in America is being destroyed by judicial coup. An activist judge isn't a real judge. He also said at one point, if any judge anywhere can block every presidential order everywhere, we do not have a democracy. We have tyranny of the judiciary. No, that it's a checks and balances system. It would be tyranny and of the executive branch if judges did not have the power, yes, to block every single order if necessary. Yeah, they have the power to do that. They're a really damn powerful branch of government, equally powerful. That's kind of the point. Same thing with Congress, but they waste their power on just making themselves rich rather than actually doing the job the American people hired them to do. So really so Trump has lost the Supreme Court, the most recent Supreme Court ruling where they said you have to pay out USAID. There have been a few other court cases that have come through that have not been in Trump's favor. There was a FOIA request that required the release of records relating to Doge. And this ruling was seen as a setback by Musk and Trump because it increases transparency into their government restructuring. And they just felt like, oh, great, more oversight, bureaucracy. But in reality, it was more for transparency. Also, the judge blocked a Trump order that paused refugee admissions. There was also the courts mandating the reinstatement of health-related websites that were removed by Trump's executive orders. There's also been judges that have blocked Trump's attempts to limit birthright citizenship and other executive orders. Practically everything he has signed has gone to the judges, and the judges have rejected it. So that now Elon and Trump are thinking these judges are just activists. They're partial to liberals, even though many of these judges were actually appointed by Trump during the Trump administration and by conservatives. What is an activist judge when they say, oh, these are activist judges? What's an activist judge? Anybody could be labeled an activist judge. Many people believed the appointment of Amy Coney Barrett, Gorsuch, and Kavanaugh was turning SCOTUS into a conservative activist court. You could claim they're activists, but activists for the conservatives. You could say that about any judge that's appointed really anywhere, that because they're appointed by either Trump or Biden or Obama or whatever, that they're all activist judges. I mean, this isn't the weaponization of that language is what's so scary to me. What I'm really afraid of is the sentiment that's shifting inside of the MAGA movement that is looking an awful lot like the woke shit libs. It is looking an awful lot like that, where you had the liberals for so long, the will of the people. What was the will of the people during COVID? You know, when Elon Musk says these judges are undermining the will of the people, you know, these are activist judges, they should be impeached. Well, Democrats said that same sort of stuff over judges that were, when they overturned Roe v. Wade. They wanted to do things like expand the court or impeach the justices. everybody's got a different idea of what an activist judge is. But if you're talking about the will of the people, during COVID, the will of the people was actually, by and large, to silence any sort of anti vax activists, silence critics. They were all for that. The people were for that. The vast majority of people were for mandates. The vast majority of people were for silencing misinformation. And luckily, some of the judges did not uphold that sort of tyranny. So the will of the people is not the bar that we should be deciding by. The will of the people is often tyrannical, which is why there's protection for the minority inside of the judiciary. And that's what we have to maintain. But my fear right now is, there's a lot of, whatever Trump and Musk says, suddenly there's a big group of people that rally behind it, even when it is so antithetical and against what they ran on and why people voted for them. And I say them, nobody voted for Elon, but Trump and Trump's agenda. The freedom movement, I'm seeing a lot are being co-opted into this anti-freedom and now anti-democratic movement. It was the liberals that were doing it. And I guess that's the biggest, the big takeaway from this is, for one, I think what Musk is calling for is incredibly dangerous. To have the most powerful, the wealthiest and now one of the most powerful men calling for impeachment of judges, even judges that were appointed under Trump, claiming they're activists, trying to brainwash people into believing that the judges have just got to go, that they're all corrupt. That is very dangerous. That's stuff that you see coming out of Brazil with their heavily anti-democratic system that they're in, and the attacks that's going on in Brazil. This is the type of stuff that you see in dystopian nations that the United States prides itself on not being. I mean, I guess we're marching ourselves to that because people are now championing it. It was like COVID. I couldn't believe so many liberals who claimed they were pro-democracy and freedom, so gleeful to rip freedom and democracy away from people. And now you've got the MAGA side who's been saying, we want our freedom back, we want democracy back. But the minute Trump or Elon Musk says something, they say, never mind, but not for that. This is different. This is different. No, you're all the same. Two cheeks of the same ass. Again, it's all the same. And it just goes to show human nature is the same. It doesn't matter if you're left or right. This isn't a liberal issue, woke mind virus. This is just a mind virus issue. Left and right, doesn't matter. People will fall into the same traps, into the same way of thinking. And now I'm seeing it on the right, and it's really disheartening to see, but I expected it, to be honest, because I know that this is how the pendulum swings. And, one side goes crazy and then the other side goes equally crazy. And that's kind of what we're seeing right now. But I don't like seeing this attack. It does make me wonder if Elon's got he's going on a power trip. He's got a lot of power, a lot of sway, and now he's going on a power trip. And he's now saying things like this that I think are incredibly dangerous. He's got way too much power. He really does. And I've never been one that's anti-Elon Musk. Our guest tonight has been pretty much anti-Elon Musk the whole time, and we'll talk to her about that. But I've never been one that's anti anything that he does or everything that he does. But, for him to be able to threaten, let's say, Ukraine with, well, I could just switch off your internet with Starlink. I could just flip a button and you suddenly wouldn't have internet, and that would be the end of all of your operations. That is incredibly dangerous for one person to have that sort of power. Now, he doesn't really have that sort of power because SpaceX and Starlink are corporations. There's some oversight there. Just because he's a CEO doesn't mean he can do anything he wants without there being some sort of repercussions, but certainly a lot more power than one should feel comfortable with. And that's why now Italy is rethinking their contracts, whether or not they want the Italian government to rely on Starlink. They were thinking about switching over and using Starlink for all of their communications, but now they're thinking, do we really want to be under the thumb of one person that suddenly doesn't agree with what we're saying? Like maybe Italy challenges something in the Trump administration and Elon Musk just flips a switch and turns off the Italian government. That is very scary. So I do think he has a lot of power as the wealthiest person in the world and controlling now things like internet. You thought control of Twitter was bad or just control of, somebody having the ability to censor misinformation on a social media platform. I mean, just imagine being able to turn off the internet entirely for people. So I think there's reason to be skeptical and leery. And I think there's definitely, if you're going to be a principled person, it is time to call this out. Call out the, look, you're going on a power trip. This is too much. You can't attack the judiciary just because you don't like their rulings. The left didn't like a lot of their rulings too, and they made the same sort of accusations. And I thought you guys were trying to be better than them. That was my thinking, but maybe not. I don't know. That's what I thought, though. That's what I was sold. So I want what I bought. But all right, let's go ahead and move on with the show.